work our way through a little Peacock Caddis today. In the vise I have a Daiichi 1100, which is just a standard dry fly hook in a size 12. For thread, I'm going to use Danville's 6/0 in black. So let's get started. We're going to start the thread at about the 1/3, 2/3 mark. So about a third of the way down the shank. And that's going to help us visualize where we want the body to end. So at the end of the shank, with the thread, I'm going to tie in a little tag. For that, I'm going to use medium pearl flat tinsel. Slide this into position. Take a loose wrap. And then I'm going to advance my thread forward just to get it out of the way. Now we're going to take this tinsel and we're going to make a little tag by wrapping down the bend of the hook about 3 times and then back over top of itself to the end of that shank or where we park that thread. Now we're going to bring all these wraps off. I'm going to unwind these till I get to that tag and then tie it off. And then we'll just bury that underneath our body. Our body is going to be peacock herl from a peacock eye. So I have a stick here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off. On a fly this size, 4 is usually a good number. So keeping the tips somewhat even, that's going to be the most brittle part of the herl. So I'm going to just trim that away down about 1/2 inch. I'm going to tie this in to what our body's going to be, the end of the shank. Now I need to reinforce this peacock herl, and to do that on this fly I'm going to show you how to use the thread. There's a couple different ways you can do this. For this one we're going to just do a dubbing loop, wrapping up on itself. I'm going to cut off one of those legs, so now we just have one strand of thread coming off. I'll move my thread forward, parking it at the 1/3 mark. Ready to make this body. So with my 4 pieces of herl and our 1 piece of thread, I'm going to clamp them in. A little clamp. And you can see now I'm going to twist this up. The twists are going to move fast up towards the top, which is going to be the most brittle. So I'm only going to get about 3 or 4 little turns in there before we need to start coming forward. If you keep winding this, good possibility you can break it. Once we get a handful of turns in there, now we're into the thicker stem. We can work our way forward. So these are just nice touching turns. I'm spinning this herl up as I go, making a little chenille. I do like to come in here and pull everything back so I'm not trapping a bunch of that down. And then when we get to that parked thread, so now you can see our body's about 2/3 of the length of the shank. I'll reach in here and tie this off. Once we have it secured, we can come in here, trim away our butts, and now I'm going to put a quick little thread base down in that 1/3 section up front. So for the wing of the fly, we're going to use just some deer hair. So this is compare done here, a little bit shorter, a little finer. And what I've done is cleaned and stacked a small amount. So if I was going to compress this, this is probably no more than a couple toothpicks. Get rid of any broken ends in there. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to measure so the end of the wing comes to the end of the hook itself. I'll switch hands and I'm going to trim these off so I can bury the butts underneath the hackle that I'm going to put on. So I'm going to come up, keeping everything on top, a couple loose wraps, pull tight, still holding on to the hair. I'm going to work my way forward, start trapping these down. Now we can see where we're at. Pretty good. Just want to keep everything on top. If I do get some that migrate onto the bottom, you can come in here and just trim them away at this point. So that's our wing tied in. For our hackle up front, what I have here is a whiting saddle. This is in a variant color, but a brown would work perfectly fine. You could put a grizzly on here, and what I've done is I've trimmed away the bottom part of the feather and then stripped away some of those barbs, so I have just a stem to start off with. I'm going to tie this in right at the base of that wing. I'm going to park my thread right behind the eye. Now on this kind of fly, I like to have a good part of the feather facing forward, so when I make my first turn, I make sure that the feather is in the right position. So right up against the base of that wing, and then working forward and touching turns, I'm going to pile on quite a bit of hackle on this. Back and forth through there. Make sure everything's covered. And my last turn is going to be right behind the eye of that hook. And then just come in here and tie this off. A couple turns. Come in here and get rid of our feather. Try to pull everything back. Get ready for our wet finish. Now I've trapped a couple fibers, and that's fine. We can come in here and trim those away. Just make sure everything is in position. So great little searching fly, little Peacock Caddis. Serves me well, usually in larger sizes, this being a size 12. I will tie them down to a 14, and occasionally I'll carry 10s. So give that one a try. Thank you.